answering this question for you, and it's a question that I got in my small coaching group. So we are just over halfway through the small coaching group, and halfway through, I send out a questionnaire to find out what parents are still struggling with. When we start working together, any parents who have whose children are consuming a lot of milk, or who are eating and eating in a distracted way, like with the tablet or TV, or eating separate meals from the parents, those are the things that we fix and set right in the first 2 weeks, plus the schedule. So all of the people in my small coaching group started off with their children wanting snacks all the time and getting snacks all the time. So in the first week, we set up a schedule, and then within the first 3 weeks, there's no more distractions like with the tablets and TV, and there's no more snacking between meals. Everybody is sticking to their schedule. And so when they submitted their halfway checkpoint questionnaire, some of the things that came up that were consistent were that they were saying, look, we're offering, the same meal and everything. They're still gravitating towards their safe foods. So now that we've set up everything else and the main structural elements of meal times are under control, what we're focusing on now is starting to really challenge those foods and start working towards some of the goals of what foods the parents actually want the children to try. So when we start the group, you get a questionnaire that asks you for your child's current reliable foods, because that allows me, as I'm going through and assigning homework tasks for the week, I can see what foods are your child's reliable ones. And then from there, I can look at what your wish list of foods are, and we can work towards incorporating the wish list foods into the reliable foods. Now, this does take time. And what I love about the small coaching groups is that all the parents that show up, that join the groups, they are very well aware that this is the type of thing that does take time. It doesn't just happen overnight. These parents did not get to this position with their picky eater in a few weeks. No one is going to reverse that in just a couple of weeks either. So that's a really great space to be in, because you can create space with your expectations. If you have the expectation of coming in and saying, oh, everything's going to be fixed in 8 weeks, well, unfortunately, that's just not possible. So if you have questions and you're on the live, feel free to put them in. If you're on Instagram, tap on the little question mark icon and stick them in the actual question box so I can tap on them and read it. But I am going to answer some questions. So to get to the question, how do I actually get my child to eat the foods that I want them to eat? The first thing you've got to do is have them on the plate or have them at the meal. That's the first step. The next step is it's kind of going back a step. You need to get your kids into the kitchen to help you prep it, whether that's taking them to the supermarket with you to select the foods. That may look like you are inviting them into the kitchen to pick the food from the fridge, wash it, peel it, cut it, whatever it may be. And it doesn't even have to be just the target foods like the vegetables. It can be other things as well. It really depends on where your child is starting from. If you have a child that is extremely food anxious, getting them into the kitchen to even interact with the food might be a really big struggle. And so when we work together in the small coaching group, I have a lot of your background and your history with your child, so that I know, okay, that child definitely has some anxiety. So we need to start even further back rather than starting with giving them the food right in front of them, because if they're going to scream and have a tantrum when the food's on their plate, that's not a good place for that child to start. So everybody's starting in a different place. And what's really nice about the small coaching groups is that all the parents get to know each other, because the group is so small, and we really build this lovely little community. And because we have an online chat, which is kind of like DMing, we can DM each other. The parents in the group submit their homework tasks from the week so that I can review them and they can ask questions throughout the week. So let's say I give them a challenge. So one child at the moment is working on refried beans, because this is a staple in that family's meal. And when I spoke to the mum on a discovery call before she started the group, she was like, this is one of my things. Like, we eat a lot of rice and refried beans and my son won't touch them. So now that we've gotten to the point where the parents are not stressed out anymore, because again, this is something that we have to reduce the stress, remove the stress in the first couple of weeks is what we're working on doing, making mealtimes enjoyable, having a structure, meaning a schedule. If you don't have a schedule or you struggle to stick to a schedule, I do have a tutorial on my YouTube channel, Family Snack Nutritionist. It's one of the top 5 videos. You can just go over and watch it. That'll help you set up your schedule and help you stick to it. It's got phrases that you can say to your child to help you stick to it support when they ask for snacks all day long. And this is also a complete module in the Mealtimes Without Meltdowns course, which you can get from the link in my bio. So we have all the structural elements of mealtime tight and under control. So now when we're starting to work on this, like for example, I'm just going to go with the refried beans example. And I have a couple of clients in not just in the small coaching group that are also working on beans. And so I'm going to give you one of the examples. If we have a safe food like chips, like tortilla chips, this is the safe food and the child is more than happy to eat those by themselves. One of the tasks that I gave these parents was to take some of the refried bean and put it on a couple of the chips, not on all the chips, just on a couple of them, and see what happens. And of course, there's a lot of other elements that go into this, because a lot of the work that I do with clients, and I say this every time I'm on a live, is it's not just about putting the food on the plate. The conversations and the communication that you have with your children around food and meal times are essential. They're an essential component of exposure. If you are just putting food on your child's plate and being like, okay, I'm not going to pressure you to eat it, that's a really good start. If you're not pressuring your child, but you were previously and you're not doing it anymore, huge. Give yourself a big pat on the back, because that's a really hard thing to stop doing. So the fact that you've stopped doing that is a great first step. If you are not involving your child in the meal prep, take that next step. Get your child involved in the meal prep. And then your mindset and the communication at meal times are the other two major components that I work on with clients, because we want to work with the child. We don't want to work against them. We don't want meal times to drive a wedge between you and your child, because whether or not your child eats a bite of broccoli, that is not more important than your relationship with your child and the trust between you and your child. So when you can shift your mindset and get to that place, that's a really, really great thing. All right, so I'm going to go over and have a look at some of the questions, and I'm going to spend some time doing a little bit of Q&A. So if you're on Instagram, that's where I'm looking right now. Please pop your question into the box with the question mark so it's easy for me to find it. Meal times, no snacking, everyone eating at the table together, no distractions. Step 1, offer the problem foods, get your child involved in the kitchen and prep, remove stress from food and enjoyment. To summarize, that's a great summary. Thank you for putting that in there. I couldn't have said it more concisely. All right, I'm going over to TikTok to see. Normally you guys are like flooding me with questions. Today, what's going on? It's Saturday morning over here where I am, and I know for most of you, probably if you're in North America, it's Friday night, so I get that it's like the end of the week. My child eats food separately rather than eating them as a mixed meal. Does anybody else struggle with the mixed meals? Because I have a few clients whose children do as well, and I can talk about that. If you're on the live and that's a question that's of interest to you, can you just double tap on your screen, because it sends a little heart, and I can know how many people are interested in me talking about that. I do have a YouTube video about mixed meals. And I also have there's a section inside Mealtimes Without Meltdowns, which is my online course that talks about helping children get comfortable with mixed dishes. All right. If an older kid doesn't even want a food on their plate, how long do you have to have it on the table at meals? All right, that's a good question. All right, I'm going to answer both of those. Those are good questions. Okay, and people want me to talk about the mixed dishes. Okay, so how old is the older child? If a child doesn't want a food on their plate, that can be a sign of food anxiety, especially if it's accompanied with like screaming, tantruming, or like something that resembles panic. If you look at a meltdown as your child having a panic attack or something similar to that, your child is probably not always, I would say 98% of clients that I've worked with in the past, that if their child has a meltdown about something being on their plate, it's usually because they are afraid that you're going to make them try it. And if your child has that fear, imagine if I put something that you found repulsive on your plate. If I had never forced you to try something before, you'd probably be quite comfortable telling me, "Oh, Talia, I really just don't want that. That's fine." But if you and I had eaten meals together for a long time, and every time I put something disgusting that you found disgusting on your plate, and I yelled at you, or I threatened you, or I coaxed you and coerced you to try and eat it, it would be something that would potentially start to make you not want to be at the table with me and not want to try that food. Especially if you consider I'm probably talking mostly to parents here. You and I are on equal footing, right? Your child and you are not on equal footing. You're the parent. You're the one in control. You have the power in this situation. So there's an unfair power dynamic here. So it's not like you going out to lunch with a friend and your friend asking you to try something. It's more like, well, it's a completely different dynamic, if you get what I'm saying. All right. So that's the question about the older kid. Now, for the mixed foods, feel free to shoot out some of the things that your child struggles with, but I'm just going to go with something like a really common one that I see is kids not wanting to have pasta or rice with a sauce, that they want it separately. If you are watching this and you have a baby and you're considering giving rice and pasta plain, don't do it. It's going to send you down a rabbit hole of your child always wanting it plain, and it becomes very difficult to then start putting the sauce on it. So never make it an option. Do you want it separately? You can give the option of would you like it on the top or mixed in? Honestly, I always gave it mixed in because it's a good way so that children know that comes together. So something that you can do, again, this, like I said in the beginning, this really depends on where your child is starting. If your child has massive food anxiety, you are not going to mix the food together and put it on their plate, because they will have an epic tantrum and meltdown because they have this huge fear of them being forced into trying this food. So you can't start there if you've got a child that is that massively anxious. If you do have a child that is that massively anxious about foods, get in contact with me. You can send me a DM now on TikTok and Instagram or Facebook. Ideally on TikTok or Instagram, because I'm fastest at getting back to you there. Because more than likely you are going to need help with peeling back the layers of why your child is anxious and promoting really positive communication at mealtimes to help your child become confident at mealtimes. And like I said, for the parents that are in my small coaching groups, this is something that we work on in the first 3 weeks, like hardcore. So when I send out that questionnaire halfway through, this is no longer something that we're working on, because I've already taught you the skills and communication strategies that you need to be able to connect with your child. So this is something that parents are able to learn reasonably quickly and put into practice right away. There is some guidance on this in my Mealtimes Without Meltdowns course as well, about how to talk to your children. Tone is really important. And the course Mealtimes Without Meltdowns is video, just like this. So you can see me, you can see my face. It's not just a voiceover or anything like that. It's quite involved. All right, so with a mixed dish, if you have a child, I'm going to go with the typical kid here, not one that has massive food anxiety. You give them the option. I would at this stage give them the option. Would you like the sauce on the top, or would you like it mixed into the pasta? And chances are they're going to pick for it to be on the top and not mixed in. Totally fine. That's a good start. You can also invite your child into the kitchen and give them a spoon and ask them to pick the amount of sauce they want to put on there. If they pick a really small amount of sauce, that's fine. But you need to let them know ahead of time, this is a mixed dish and it all comes together. All right, I saw some questions come in. Thank you for putting this one in the question box. My child will only eat what he is familiar with. As soon as things look slightly different, he won't entertain the thought. Does anybody else have a child that is similar to that? So Lauren submitted this question. I have a follow-up question for this. Do you mean that, I'm just going to use the example of a chicken nugget. Do you mean that your child has a specific brand of chicken nugget that they like and they won't eat chicken nuggets elsewhere? Like, let's say there's a specific brand that you buy at home, but then if you go to a restaurant, they won't eat the chicken nuggets there. Are we at that level of specificity? Or is it more like your child will happily eat a chicken nugget, but they won't eat a homemade chicken nugget? This is a question that if your child is similar to this, I want you to ask yourself this question. Because if your child is so specific and they will only eat a certain brand, I work with a number of children at the moment that are this specific, that they will eat pasta, but they'll only eat it at home, or they will only eat it from one restaurant, or if it's a packaged food, they will only eat that one package. Like with yogurt, for example, they will only eat the one brand of yogurt with 2 flavors, and they will not accept any other yogurt. If we're looking at that amount of specificity, that is a massive red flag, because in terms of your child's flexibility, they're very, very limited. And in terms of what your life is going to look like and what their life is going to look like as they start get older and older, it might be fine if you've got like a 1.5-year-old or a 2-year-old, but once they're 5 and 6 and they're going to school and sometimes yogurts get discontinued. I was working with a client during the pandemic, and the drinkable yogurt that this child was the only 2 flavors that he liked, they discontinued them. And mum was having like massive anxiety because the drinkable yogurt, when we started working together, was his main source of nutrition. So if we're looking at that level of specificity, I want you to know that that is a red flag. It's not normal. And the reason I'm telling you that is because especially if you only have one child, you don't know, like eating is on a spectrum, right? Some children gravitate more so to be more selective. My youngest daughter is a little bit like that. I'm really lucky I know exactly how to manage it so that she didn't go narrower and narrower and narrower and only eat cheese and fruit and bread. However, it's on a spectrum. That's the important thing to know. However, if your child is so specific, you may think that that is normal. And I want you to know it's not. I was on a discovery call with a woman, a mum, probably a year ago, who said, like, I don't expect my child to eat like a fish sandwich or anything because that's like a little bit out there. And I'm like, children are very capable of eating a fish sandwich. Like, we have these ideas in our head, like of kid food and not kid food. And it's just, if you're really thinking that your child needs to be boxed in, like to only eating kid food, I want you to know that your child is capable of eating more things. So it's important to know that. I sometimes say this in my lives. I myself was diagnosed with postpartum depression and anxiety, but I didn't think I had it. I thought it was just, normal to experience what I was experiencing. It wasn't until I was told that I was like, there's a spectrum, right? That the symptoms that I was having were quite severe, and I'm still on medication for it, and I'm a much happier person. Leaving my marriage also really helped with that. But if you don't know that something's a problem, you can't make a change to it. And you don't have to go through your life being like, my child only eats like one brand of chicken nugget. So that's why I make it a point of saying these things. All right. I'm going to have a look at what new questions we've got. Oh, this is a good one. Okay. Hang on. Damn it. I wanted to read it. Okay. What if one parent is not pressuring, but the other parent / grandma is pressuring? Does it sabotage the efforts of the non-pressuring parent? I'm not sure how I pronounce your name, but if you're still on the live, can you let me know who's the person that's mostly feeding the child? I always have more questions. It's a really good starting off point, but I always need to, I want to know details. So if you've got, for example, if you're in a custody arrangement and you have your child 3 nights a week, you can still make positive changes because your child knows that the rules are different at your house than they are at the other parent's house. I'm experiencing this at the moment. My children know that they get all the food they can ask for whatever they want at daddy's house, and that's what they have. They know that that's not the case with me. They understand that the rules are different at different places. If grandma is pressuring at every meal, I would recommend having a conversation with grandma about that. But if it's something that's only happening very occasionally or like even once a week, I would be more okay with letting it go. I have there's pretty much every client that I've worked with that has said like their mother-in-law or father-in-law or dad or their own parents or something pressure, or like their sister when they go to the sister's house is pressuring the child to eat. There are conversations that you can have with your child to explore this with them before you get there, even when they're really young, and have conversations with your child while they are there in that situation so that they know that they are supported and that your rules, I suppose, of not having to eat the food are the ones that they need to worry about. Meaning that if grandma pressures, you can help your child through conversation and through communication, help them be able to filter that out and realize that that's not something that they have to take on board. I hope that answers the question. Oh, you answered me. I am mostly feeding, not pressuring. Dad at work most of the time. Grandma pops into. Okay, so in that case, if it's not happening a lot of the time, your consistent strategies are the ones that are the most important. And remembering that you're the mum, you trump grandma. You do with your child. You just do. And your child will start to understand as they get older that grandma says different things, and that's fine. So I'll just give you a quick example. Something that you can say, like, if you know that you're going to see grandma, and you can ask your child, or you can ask them this afterwards as well. Hey, did you notice that grandma asked you to eat your green beans? How did that make you feel? Have a conversation about it. Let your child lead it, and ask from a point of being really curious. And then you can say something like, yeah, grandma does want you to eat your green beans, but you know that, you decide what you eat. You decide what you eat. And when you're ready to eat them, you can eat them. So keep it open. This is a really great way to plant a seed. If your child has no way going to touch a green bean, you don't need to say, grandma doesn't know that you don't like green beans. That's very closed. That mindset is very closed. We don't want the child to believe that they don't like green beans. You're still learning to like green beans. You can say something like that. And then also, by doing that, you're also letting your child know, hey, our rules still apply. You can kind of ignore grandma. I know that seems a bit harsh, but I know most of my followers are women, are mothers, and I think you can appreciate what I'm saying. All right. Oh my goodness, there are lots of questions on TikTok. Okay, can you help my 21-month-old in the UK? She's losing weight from refusing, I'm guessing, refusing foods. Yeah, I can. I had a woman from the UK reach out to me recently. I don't know if it was you or not. I do work with clients worldwide. Most of my clients are in North America. If you are somewhere, you're very welcome. If you are somewhere like the UAE or Europe or like UK, send me a DM, because I can open a couple of discovery spaces. It's my afternoon time, which is like your early morning time. I don't normally work those times, but if I know that there's somebody that's interested in booking a discovery call, I can open a time. So just send me a message and I can do that. There are probably a couple open right now. If you go to the link in my bio, click in the top right-hand corner, there are 3 lines, tap on work with me, and there's a place that you can book a discovery call. So if you're someone who's interested in group coaching or one-on-one coaching, it kind of depends where you're at. When we talk on the phone, I can give you a better idea of which one is the best fit for you. The group is the most affordable way to work with me, and my next group starts in January. I have a wait list for one-on-one, and right now I'm only taking one-on-ones for really very specific cases, because my one-on-one practice is quite full, and for the most part, I can give you a lot of the support that you need in the group. So that's something that we can talk about on the call. Okay. I'm just having a read through some of these questions, and I'm picking the ones that are common ones that I think will help the most amount of people. Okay. Hang on, there's one here that seems to be a series of questions. Is it possible for it to just be testing boundaries that my 21-month-old has only been eating carbs since 14 months? I'm being told it's normal, but she's losing weight and generally seems end of the world. Okay, if your child is losing weight, that's not normal. If that's like failing to thrive, that's not normal. This question has 2 parts to it, and I want to answer it because I think a lot of parents worry about this. Or I know a lot of parents worry about it because they tell me that they worry about it. Okay, if your child is losing weight, that is not normal. You absolutely need to get some support. If your child, and I've done a few videos on this, but it's worth saying again, if your child is maintaining their weight, but they are not eating a variety of foods from all the food groups, that is a problem. Just because your child is staying on their growth trajectory, if they are not eating a variety of foods from all the food groups, there's no way they are meeting their nutrient needs. No way. The quick thing that you can do, I say this on all the lives because it's something that you can do right now when we get off the live. Sit down and write down a list of the reliable foods that your child has and put them in, like, just, like, write the categories of, carbohydrate foods, basically, like, breads, pastas, the food groups, vegetables, fruits, etc. And write down, is there a variety in each one? If they've got plenty of variety, great, move on, you're good. If your child does not have a big variety, or you are stressing out about what to feed them at most meals because they refuse things, that means that there's a problem. That's not normal. If your child is losing weight, that's not normal. If your child is staying on their trajectory, but they're not eating a variety across all food groups, that's not normal either. So send me a DM. If you've got a child that's losing weight, like, that's quite an urgent issue. The other part of that question is, could it be testing boundaries? Absolutely, it's testing boundaries. That's why it tends to happen. Picky eating tends to start when children are between, it depends on the child, but usually between 14 and 18 months, 12 to 14 months, 12 to 18 months, somewhere in that, like, second year of life, because that's when children learn the word no. That's when they want to exercise their autonomy. And a lot of that is pushing boundaries. And that part of it is normal. Your child only eating 10 foods or 20 foods, or going from eating 100 foods to only eating 20 foods, that is not normal. Okay, so, and it's not optimal for their growth and nutrition. And if the narrower their food list gets, the more worried the parent gets, which gets you into this cycle of, I just want my child to eat, so I'm going to either make them whatever they want, or I'm going to force them to eat the thing that I want them to eat. And whichever one of those roads that you go down, you're going to make the picky eating worse. So yes, it absolutely can, and often does, start with limit testing behavior, but it's all about how you respond to it, which is why when I work with clients, and when you guys, if you ever take my course, you will see that a lot of what I teach you is how to communicate better with your child so that you can work together rather than doing this with each other. Because when you're doing this with each other, you're getting more frustrated, they're getting more frustrated, and everybody is losing. When you guys can find a way to work together and communicate more effectively, you can build your parent-child relationship, build the trust between the two of you, and you are going to have a much better time at meal times. And even if your child is more naturally selective, you have the tools where you can work together with your child to help them enjoy and get confident trying more foods. So I cannot understate. What's the word I'm looking for? I cannot say enough how important communication at meal times is. That's what I'm saying. Thank you so much. I saw somebody on Instagram bought a badge. Thank you. I've seen that you can, like, now do like a subscriber thing and monetize across the channels. I think that's nice, but it's not something that I've done, honestly, because, like, I've got my online courses that, if you need the extra help, you can go there, or coaching with me, of course. But I really believe, like, the reason I started my YouTube channel, which was like 2020, was right before COVID happened. It was January. It was when I posted my first lot of videos, because I really wanted a space with free content and longer form content to help parents. That's why I started Family Snack Nutritionist in the first place. If you've been watching this live for a while, you would have heard me talk about my postpartum depression. I started Family Snack Nutritionist at that time, when I was so lost in my own life and things were really, really hard. And I found this as an outlet, which initially I wasn't making any money from. And then I started YouTube, and now I have courses, and now I take clients. And I do believe that some of this needs to be absolutely available to everybody. I so appreciate the help. It makes me feel less alone in the struggle. I appreciate you saying that. And I will tell you that in almost all the feedback forms I get from clients in my small coaching groups, they say the same thing. That's one of the reasons why I started doing small coaching groups, was because, one, I know, like, the struggle that I had was depression and anxiety after my kids. But picky eating is sort of the same thing, in the sense that it can feel like you're the only one going through it. And when you can connect with a bunch of other parents that are going through similar, often very similar things, and you can feel a sense of camaraderie. In fact, that's some word that comes up a lot in the feedback surveys, is that, the parents get to know each other. You get to kind of know the other person's child. We rarely meet the children because it's just the parents there. But there's a really nice sense of community and not being alone, and you can support each other with your wins. And if there's a challenge, I encourage you to get on there and share your challenges. If you have a shitty day, I had one mum who was solo parenting this week, and, like, we get that. So it is really nice to have that sense of community. So I totally get that. All right, I've seen a ton of questions come in here. I've got about 5 more minutes. I need a drink. I've been talking so much. So I'm going to say again, if I don't get to your question, but you're interested in coaching and you want to chat with me more, you can send me a message on Instagram or TikTok, and we can either set up a time to chat about coaching, or if you're not sure that you need coaching, but you do want to start somewhere, the Mealtimes Without Meltdowns course is the best place to start. It works out, the course itself is $149 US, and it works out to be about $3 a lesson. We found cooking together helped with refusal of foods. Absolutely. We went from being picky eating a lot more. My son is 8 years old. He's so picky since bottle feeding. Sarah, the lady with the 8-year-old, if we chatted, I would have a lot of questions about, did you have issues like right from the bottle? It makes me wonder if there's something more going on underlying there. I'm getting some questions about autistic children. I have, if you're on TikTok, I do have a neurodivergent playlist. You can go and have a look at some of the videos in there. The tips and the support that I give clients, the strategies for typical versus neurodivergent children, the strategies themselves don't differ that much in and of themselves. It's the way we implement them. So the way we would have the conversations with the child would differ based on where your child is at with their understanding, and like their attention span is another one. So I'm working with a couple of children at the moment that do have autism, and one of the kids in particular, he's 4, and we've been working together for a couple of months. And when we started, he was very inflexible in, like, he would refuse and have a huge meltdown if you cut his toast. So even though the spread on the toast was exactly the same, he would just not eat it and have a huge meltdown if the toast was presented in any way that would be different. So that was where we started. We started working on his flexibility. And I mentioned this earlier with like the children only eating specific brands of things. Same thing. You've got to start small and slow, and you've got to make it non-threatening. We don't want to create more fear and issues around food. That's exactly what we don't want to do. So now this, after the first week, this child with autism was now able to accept some of his reliable foods presented differently, which is a huge step. Mum was telling me she was cutting them into triangles or, rectangles or squares and things. And I just had a call with her the other day, and that's still something that they're doing, and that he's still making progress with that. So it really depends with a neurodivergent child where you're starting, and then navigating through that, starting somewhere that is attainable for your child, that's not going to cause them more anxiety. The whole point, if we work together, is to make your parent-child relationship better while working on food. We're not sacrificing one for the other. Who has the best free resources for picky eating? I have an entire YouTube channel full of longer form coaching videos. I've also got a free phrase guide for mealtimes, which is a great place to start. It also gets you on my email list, and I send out a lot of free resources on that and tips as well. It is not too late to help a 7-year-old super picky eater. I've worked with kids up to the age of 11 who have been very picky. It is not too late. I've got a 6-year-old in one of my groups now. In a group that I had a couple of months ago, I had a 9-year-old. And so it's not too late at all. In fact, in many ways, for sure, I always say the earlier you start, the better. And the reason for that is because it means that you're struggling for less time. And it also means that your child is you're starting earlier, helping them get optimal nutrition earlier. However, when your child is older, 7 or 8, it means that you can have more in-depth conversations with them, and more, like, the way you can communicate with them is a bit more complex, and they have more complex thoughts. So again, like I said earlier, with neurodivergent children, the child's age, yes, it matters, but the strategy doesn't differ that much. It's the implementation of the strategy. So at the moment, in my current group, most of the kids in the group cluster around 2 years old, but I have one 6-year-old in the group. That seems like a really big age gap. And yeah, it is. your child at 2 can do a lot less things and has a lot less understanding compared to the child that is 6. However, when I'm in the group and I'm on the calls and I'm in the chats with you, I know how old your child is, and I'm going to give you the tips and conversations that will work for the child's age. And one of the things in the small coaching group as well, if the parent asks a really involved question, which usually they do, I send you a voice note, because tone and the way you communicate is really, really important. How can I communicate with you and get help? Sarah, you can send me a message. You can now do it on TikTok. You can also do it on Instagram if you like, or you can go directly and book a call from my website. If you go to the link in my bio and you tap the 4 lines in the top right corner, go to work with me, and you can pick a discovery call time. Please, if you do pick a discovery call time, make sure you put it in your calendar, because I don't have a lot of slots open at the moment, and sometimes I have people that don't show up, and it really bothers me because I could be talking to a different parent. So just make sure you do put it in your calendar. The times will show up in your time zone. So I'm seeing a few people. Oh, it's Sarah. A couple of other people saying that they're picky eaters as well. Can I tell you something? I had a guy reach out to me. He's in his mid-20s, and he is my first adult client who is working on his own picky eating. I had my first call with him last week, and I told him in our discovery call, I was he was, like I said, I normally only work with children, but he had clearly done a lot of work on himself, and he was very much at a place where he wanted to learn how to reparent himself, because he had shared with me a lot of things that had happened to him growing up, and it was the traditional parenting of guilt and shame for not eating things, and this had carried into adulthood with him, and it was still something that he really, really struggles with, and he's had a lot of guilt and shame around it, and this is something that he's working through. So when I say it's not too late, he's in his mid-20s. It's not too late, okay? All right, I'm going to go with one more question. My daughter, who is now 9, has been picky since she could eat food, peanut butter and jelly for lunch every single day. All right, I would have a lot more questions for you if we were to speak on the phone. I'd want to know. So something that I ask parents who say that their child has been picky. It's different when a child's been picky from around the age where they start to get more autonomy, around like a year and a half. If they've been picky since starting solids, I always ask a lot more questions about that, because there could be something that started before the child had solids. That it could be something more serious, but it also could just be, and this is hard for me to say because it pains me to say it. I've had clients that have said, yeah, the doctor told them when the baby was 4 months old that they weren't gaining enough weight, and to just shove the bottle in their mouth and make them eat it, basically. And that created such a difficult dynamic for the parent in the feeding relationship to the child, that when it came time to eating solid foods, the doctor pushed them to start solids earlier, which is a terrible idea, because it gives the impression that the child at 4 months old should be eating food, which is just not true. The recommendation is 6 months. Yeah, I know in some places it's 4 to 6. It's 6. It's really 6 months. Your child needs to be showing the signs of readiness, like sitting down. Sitting without falling over is one of the big ones. Being able to hold their head up so that they can eat, and sitting unassisted is very important. So if you've started with this sort of a dynamic of pressure, someone else is pressuring you to feed your child, that can lead to more feeding issues when you start solids. So that's one of the questions that I'd want to talk to you about if we did speak on the phone. So feel free to either book a call directly or send me a message and we can chat. But it sounds like for us to talk on the phone would be a really good thing. And to kind of give you an idea, she had a milk protein allergy, so she was only on special milk 90% of the time until she was just over 1. Okay, so that's really something that could have affected the feeding dynamic between the two of you. And it is absolutely not too late to make changes. So one of my favorite client stories was also one of my first clients. This family had a 10-year-old and a younger daughter, but we were working on the 10-year-old. she had a very limited list of foods, and she was also very resistant. Like, her mum was a chef, she was a good cook, okay? And the daughter would refuse to eat the foods that were given, and she would go and make herself a separate meal pretty much every night. And she would tell her mum how much she hated her cooking, and they had a really difficult parent-child relationship. And about 3 months in, mum sent me a message that she no longer felt like the food police, because she was so, like, her daughter would go into the pantry when she wasn't there and, like, sneak foods, like sneak like a bag of marshmallows and stuff. And the mum was coming from a place where she had had an eating disorder, and she was very afraid of that happening to her child. So, like, there were some complications, and we do have our own issues as the parent as well, which is part of what coaching is about, is working through those issues to change mindset. And then about 3 months in, the mum sent me a message in our private chat, and she just said, when my daughter came home today, she gave me a big hug, and she asked me to tuck her in at night. Remember, this is a 10-year-old daughter, 10-year-old. And I was like, that's amazing. And the mum said, I can't remember the last time she asked for a hug. Mum told me that she always gave hugs, but it was never because the child wanted a hug. And so I love this story because, yeah, I work with you and I help you with food. Absolutely. But a lot of the tools that I share with you about communication, you take into other aspects of your life as well with your child. And I love that about my work because, like, there was another client that I had on the phone a few months ago whose kid would not go to sleep because he was scared of a monster. And while we were on the phone, I just kind of gave her some quick tips of what she could say to him, because she was at a point of such frustration that the situation was escalating. Instead of them working together, they were working like this. And she messaged me after our call, and she was like, he went to bed, and we've been doing this for the last couple of days, and he's actually going to sleep now without screaming and crying. So, yeah, that's just one of the benefits of coaching, because, when we're talking about food, we're not just talking about, here's a meal plan, go feed your kid this. That's not going to work. Your child needs help with learning how to approach new foods, and that comes from you learning how to help them approach new foods, and that really comes down to communication. And so that's what I help you with. So if you have more questions, either send me a private message, or you can go and book a call. And if you're interested in the next coaching group, if you're like, where do I sign up? I don't have the link on my website. Send me a message either on Instagram or TikTok and say, hey, I was on your live. I'd like to join your next small coaching group, and I will send you the link directly to register for it. When you register now, you will get access to both. It's a special early bird bonus. You'll get access to both my online courses when you register, which is Meal Times Without Meltdowns and Stress-Free Sweets and Eats. So you have somewhere to get started right now, and then the group starts in January. If you have more questions, I do have a section on my website about the small coaching group. There is an FAQ on there. But if you still have a question, you're not totally sure that it's the right thing for you, just send me a message and we can chat about it. All right, I've got to go. I've got a lot of washing that just finished, and I need to cook some food because my kiddos are coming back to me today. But thanks for being on the live, and thanks for asking questions. And I'll see you soon. Have a good one. Bye.